It should be white. White light is good.
Yeah.
All right, I've got 5:45, so we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. If everyone would stand for a moment of silence in the pledge. Thank you. Madam Recorder, if you'd call the roll.
Chairman Floyd,
Present.
Vice Chair Harrison,
Present.
Deborah Thomas,
Present.
Jeremy Burnett,
Here.
Michelle Childs,
Here.
and Superintendent Horrell.
Here.
We do have a quorum. Mr. Superintendent, would you lead us through our agenda?
I will. The first item on the agenda is the opportunity for public comment.
Anyone from the public like to speak? Hearing none. Next item.
Next on the agenda is the opportunity for public comment on the use of ESSER 3.0 federal COVID-19 funds. This is the American Recovery Plan Elementary and Secondary Schools Emergency Relief COVID-19 funds. And as the board knows and the community knows, we have solicited feedback from both teachers and staff, as well as stakeholders in the Lakeland community and board members. And this is an opportunity for the public to add any additional thoughts or comments they would like to before we finalize our ESSER 3.0 plans.
Would anyone from the public like to speak to the ESSER 3.0 plans? Hearing none. Next item.
Next, we move into the reports section, starting with the chairman's welcome.
I'd like to welcome everyone to our June business meeting. School is officially out, and this is our first meeting I think we've had in well over a year without mask or Zooming, so this is a familiar but new experience. Dr. Horrell has joined us again up here and is no longer sitting down 12 feet away from us, so it's good to see you up here, Dr. Horrell. I'd like to congratulate, we got Mr. Adler and Ms. Lockhart on a successful school year under challenging circumstances, and by my experience, it certainly exceeded my expectations, and I think the expectations of the board for everything that you had to deal with to get us to where we got throughout the school year. So thank you. That concludes my report. Dr. Horrell, next item.
Next is the TLN representative update from Ms. Childs.
General Assembly has ended, and I recently was part of a webinar with TSBA, and so they went over some of the new laws that relate to education. So I'm going to highlight a few that I haven't already previously highlighted. Okay, the first one is, and these are, like I said, already signed public laws. So the first one is Public Chapter 40. Students who participate in interscholastic athletics in grades 5 through 12 must participate with the sex at their birth on their original birth certificate. The second one I'll mention is Public Chapter 170, Academic Acceleration Policy. Objective standards, including TCAP and grades, must be used for this. The next one is Teacher Immunity, Public Chapter 188. That if a teacher is using reasonable force to remove, to make it safe and move a student, that they are immune from civil liability and they will not be the proximate cause if there's an injury. Fourth one is Common Core Curriculum, Public Chapter 205, is that no curriculum or textbooks can be chosen that are exclusively and only Common Core or marketed for Common Core, or funds can be withheld. The next one is, there was a law passed last year that we had some concerns about because it basically stated that a student had to attend alternative school on another campus if they were violent, but an exception has been added that allows for discretion if you're a small school district like we are and your alternative school is on the same campus as where the student would attend, so then you have a choice. The next is that Public Chapter 281. If you have any curriculum related to gender identity or sexual orientation, then there must be a 30-day curriculum notification and parents can opt out. And lastly, I'm going to mention there's a pretty extensive Public Chapter 452 on bathroom accommodations and how it must be a student, or if they are under 18, it would be a parent request, or a teacher or an employee can request to have a single-use bathroom. And I'm gonna look at this real quick because there's stipulations on what is considered reasonable, but then beyond that, if a school district allows a student of they use the word opposite sex, to use this changing facility, then they can also, and other students are in there who are the opposite sex, then they can basically sue and have a private right of action. So if girls are in the bathroom and someone that is considered the opposite sex comes in, then those students would have the right to create an action or lawsuit. And this also extends to field trips and overnight accommodations.
Any questions on the TLN report? Hearing none, next item.
Next item is the superintendent's report. I do have a few things I'd like to share with the board today. Got to check in with Camp Invention, which started today at the elementary school, and this was our first foray, I guess, into a post-COVID educational activity. So it was great to see the students gathered there in the gym and to see their smiling faces. There were certainly some students that had chosen to wear masks, and we certainly support that as they are optional right now in Lakeland school system. But it was great to see everybody kind of back at it and working with their teachers in the gymnasium today with Camp Invention. Speaking of camps, we will begin our summer learning camps on June 21st. And just so the public and the school board are aware, we did have complete discretion as to when those camps would be run, and ours is about 3 weeks behind some of the other camps that you may have seen getting started in the community. That was a a decision made to put the learning a little bit closer to the start of the next school year rather than towards the end of the previous school year. I'm certain there are advantages to both, but that's the approach that they decided to take. So we've got about 250 students that we're expecting to participate at the two schools for those summer learning camps that'll each be 4 weeks long. And we're looking forward to it and certain that those kids will get a good experience from those camps. I did want to just share with the board, I've shared with the board, but just share with the public. There has been an issue with the TCAP parent portal, and we did get some feedback on that, and now both schools have addressed that with the community. There was some information that was sent out originally as to when parents would be able to start accessing the portal, and long story short, there was an error message that was not accurate. It kind of gave the impression that it was a user error and said there may be an issue with the birthday or the login, and in fact it's I think a bigger issue than that, and the system just wasn't quite ready. So parents have been communicated with about that. Wanted to give the board an update about the athletic complex as part of the Lakeland Prep project on the east side of the Lakeland Prep campus. We're feeling actually better and better than my last report about the possibility and our hope that the complex be ready for play on August 1st, which is the contractual goal with the city of Lakeland. There is sod on 3 of the 5 soccer fields now, almost entirely on 3 of them. And all of our vendors are saying that if all the sod is installed by July 4th, they fully believe that those fields will be playable. In fact, the first field that was sodded and has already begun to be cut and rolled and irrigated and fertilized, if you walked on it right now, you'd think you could play soccer on it. So we're really excited about that. In fact, took Shane Horn and Pat O'Mara today on a little driving tour through there and a little bit of a walk. So with Pat is the Parks and Recreation Director for the City of Lakeland, so they can begin thinking about it. And I think they were certainly impressed with what they saw of both the fields and then the facilities there as well. I just wanted to give a little update on athletics. The new middle school basketball coach that Mr. Adler identified and hired took the team to team camp last week. I'm told the team went 6-2 in their games there and got better over the course of the week. Mr. Adler's had conversations with individuals regarding rugby and golf in the last week as we continue to not rugby, lacrosse. Thank you. He's going to correct me, and then he may strangle me. He's not had conversation about rugby, lacrosse, and golf. So certainly doing a lot of work to think ahead on what athletics look like in the next in the next couple of years here, and having conversations about how to be prepared for the start of high school and all the sports. To update the board, we're in continued discussion, actually over more than one piece of property that might be a suitable piece of property for a future elementary school. We don't have anything that we can report publicly now, but we are again continuing to move forward with that. We know, and Ms. Lockhart will tell you what a priority it is to make sure we have a place to put that next elementary school as we continue to grow at Lakeland Elementary. Want to note that we are extremely proud of both of our schools for being awarded the Purple Star Award from the Military Interstate Children's Compact Commission. This is a real honor, only the second class of schools to be basically recognized for being intentionally friendly and supportive to military families. And I think everyone here knows how much we appreciate, support, and love our military families and children here in Lakeland, and we certainly want to do everything we can to make sure that they have the best experience that those kids can have at school. And Ms. Lockhart and Mr. Adler do a tremendous job along with their staffs of making sure that those families are supported, and it was great to see that recognized in that way. You may have seen teachers. We had some teachers in the building last week participating in the SPDIG 2.0 grant. This is a $40,000 grant that's a follow-up to the $70,000 grant that was the initial SPDIG grant, which is the State Personnel Development Grant, and we're very excited to receive that. That's also the grant that we were honored for being an Access Exemplary District on basically the approach to making sure that all students are learning in Lakeland school system. And it's been a great program for our teachers and students. I will tell you that there was a time when $70,000 and $40,000 seemed like a whole lot of grant money. And with all the federal grants that we're dealing with now, it's kind of those numbers don't look quite as big because we're getting so many federal dollars. But we're thrilled to have that money. Speaking of federal grants, I wanted to note that in our ESSER 3.0 survey, we received 313 responses from stakeholders in that second round of feedback. So that's providing some really valuable data on how we might best spend those federal funds. I will note that the plurality of people, and meaning that the most popular choice has been expanding our facilities to allow for additional social distancing. I think the experience, particularly at Lakeland Middle, where in order to have 5 days a week of in-person instruction, we had to borrow more than 200 desks and tables and spread students out, as the board knows, in the library, in the cafeteria, and in the halls. To have that in-person learning, that's absolutely a need, and I think we would agree is a baseline need. If you don't have space to educate students, it's very hard to do much of anything else. So there does seem to be widespread support for that idea. I also wanted to offer a report back from the Black Stakeholders Committee that was initiated following the events of last summer. There were 3 significant recommendations from that committee. One was create new diversity-minded positions on our parent support groups, the PTA and the PTO, recruit more teachers of color, and consider diverse voices when choosing reading selections or selections in the school. So I thought that committee did a great job coming up with some things that we could do concretely, and I'm happy to report that already both the PTO and the PTA have added those positions. So their positions, Ms. Lockhart, was it diversity and inclusion liaison is one, and diversity and inclusion chair. So we want to thank Ms. Lockhart and Ms. Lewis and all the members of that committee for that important work and having some, I think, real significant. That's a significant addition, I think, to those groups, and something exciting that we can look back on. And finally, he is here in the room with us, but I wanted to note that our own Mr. Adler was named the 2021 Tennessee School Administrator of the Year by the Tennessee School Counselor Association, and he is sitting there next to the West Regional Principal of the Year, Ms. Lockhart. So definitely good company there in the back of the room. So it's definitely proud of both of those principals. That concludes my report. Are there any questions?
Any questions for the superintendent? Ms. Harrison?
Do you have an update on, I know we talked about it the past, I think, 2 meetings, but do you have any update on the state and the quarantine status for next year and how that will be handled?
I have not gotten an update. Ms. Childs actually followed up on that today, and I need to have a follow-up conversation, I think, with Dr. Morrison to see if there's been any progress made, referring to how will we handle the continuing education of students who may either have COVID-19 or be in quarantine due to exposure to COVID-19.
Any further questions? Mr. Burnett?
Dr. Hurl, one follow-up question to the Black Stakeholders Committee. Do you have a baseline for the diversity of our faculty currently where we might consider goals for expanding that?
We do have that data. I don't have that data at my fingertips, but I will absolutely get it to you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for the superintendent? Hearing none, next item.
Next item is the approval of the agenda.
Any additions or subtractions from the agenda? The objection to approving the agenda as printed? Hearing no objection, the agenda is approved.
Next item is the consent agenda. There are no items on the consent agenda, so we will move on. I do want to note to the board, if I can, Eric Plumley is joining us via telephone today, or I guess more accurately, he's on a Google Meet right now with us, so if you have any questions for Eric, he is available. The next item, and we move into the discussion portion of the agenda. The first item is a presentation from Dr. Dale Lynch, who is with us. He is Executive Director of the Tennessee Organization of School Superintendents.
Lynch, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and it's very obvious that I'm in a room full of champions, I guess, tonight. So it's only fitting that I bring hardware to recognize your superintendent or director. But before I do that, I want to say a couple of words, if that's okay. I drove from Nashville, so I hope you'll give me just a couple of minutes.
As long as you want.
I promise you I will be brief, but the words I say truly come from the heart. And I want you to know that I knew you before you were anybody. As a superintendent who served 2 decades in our great state of Tennessee, I watched with great excitement before Lakeland became Lakeland School District. Was very curious about how a school district could all of a sudden evolve before there were boards of education, before there were you, before there was a director of schools. And I watched with curiosity, and as a fellow, as a colleague, as a fellow superintendent, the courage that it took to form your own school system here. And I think just the atmosphere that I feel in this room, even before the meeting started, I would say congratulations to building a school system of great culture here. As I entered the door, I had a conversation with your superintendent, and he said there won't be a lot of people here tonight. And I said, consider yourself lucky. I said I attend board meetings all across the state, and usually if you have a crowd, especially in June, then you're probably in trouble. Silence sometimes speaks volumes. Silence speaks volumes. But I also want to say thank you to the chairman and everyone else who's here for recognizing the boots on the ground, the hard work your administrators, your teachers, and all of your employees do. Without them, Lakeland wouldn't be Lakeland, and you know that. But again, on behalf of our Association of Superintendents, I know you were speaking for the work that TSBA has done. Thank you for your involvement with TSBA and the support that they do for all of you. We try to do the same thing for our superintendents or directors. But I want you to know your superintendent could not do his job without you letting him do his job. I'm so thankful to go across our state and work with superintendents who have a board that understands their role. And I'm just going to say some things here that he didn't know I was going to say, but he is extremely complimentary of your leadership and your work to support his work and their work. So thank you for understanding your role, and thank you for staying in your lane, making him stay in his lane, because we all always work better like that. I want you also to know that the work that you're doing here is recognized across our state. Growing and continuing to expand opportunities for your kids here in this community is something that we're all going to keep our eye on. So congratulations to you for the next phase of what this chapter in the school system is going to do for boys and girls. But the real reason I'm here is to recognize your superintendent or director. As you have award winners behind me, you also have an award winner beside of you. And in the many years that I served as a superintendent, and now in the last 4 years or so as executive director at TOS, there's not a higher praise or honor that one can receive than being recognized by their peers. That's exactly what has happened with your superintendent. I also will tell you, sometimes you know your superintendent here in your own community, and you maybe even know him in your region. But I want to tell you a little bit about your superintendent statewide. Your superintendent is one of the most engaged superintendents out of 145 that we have in our state when it comes to legislation. He's always calling, always advocating, always in the know. And I would say to you that you have a superintendent that is a leader among leaders. He is recognized not just in West Tennessee, but also recognized in Middle and also East Tennessee, where I have spent most of my career. Ted, thank you for your leadership here, but more importantly, thank you for your leadership for the boys and girls all across our state of Tennessee. Because of your involvement and your engagement with our association, it makes us all better. But tonight, I'm going to ask you to come down here and join me, if you would. And, you know, the last thing I want to say is when you get a good superintendent, hang on to them. And I'm going to say to superintendent, when you get a good Board of Education, hang on to them. Because that's when good things can happen at schools. That's when administrators can do their work. That's when teachers can do their work, because you have good leadership and you recognize it and you let them do their work. So tonight, it gives me a great pleasure, and it's an honor to be here with you tonight to recognize the 2022 Southwest Region Tennessee Superintendent of the Year, Dr. Ted Horrell, Lakeland School System, presented by Tennessee Organization of School Superintendents. Congratulations.
Thank you, Dr. Lynch. Thank you for coming. Congratulations, Dr. Horrell. It is not a surprise to any of us sitting up here, I can tell you that. It's an honor well deserved, and congratulations.
Thank you. I really did say a lot of nice things about the board to him over time. Y'all are a terrific board, and definitely allow me to do my job as well as I can do it. So thank you. All right, the next item on the agenda is the approval of the business meeting minutes from May 10th, 2021.
Is there a motion to get this item on the floor?
I'll move.
A motion, is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on this item? Hearing none, all in favor of approving, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next item.
Next item is discussion action on update to policy 2.805 purchasing.
Is there a motion to get this item on the floor?
I'll move.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Dr. Horrell, would you like to speak to this?
I would. This actually and the next one, agenda item number 4, both have to do with the recent change in state law that has to do with the threshold over which boards of education are required to receive competitive bids. The previous law said that if any item or collection of items was more than $10,000, that the board must do a public bid in which you advertise it, notify bidders, take sealed bids and open them and take the lowest, most competitive bid. They have raised that threshold to $25,000, which means that under $25,000, you can just get 3 quotes, which is a much less kind of cumbersome process than the public bidding. So this one just involves a change to the language in that particular area, as does, frankly, the next one, bids and quotations.
Any further discussion on this item? Ms. Childs.
On the training I was participating in, it said it was effective July 1st, the law. So, is that written somewhere? I might have missed it.
I would have to double check that. My understanding was that it took effect immediately, but I can confirm that.
Ben could have had it wrong, but he said it was effective July 1st.
We will confirm it.
Okay.
If I think we can update the policy, and as long as the purchasing is in. Jesse, Ms. Rosales had a conversation with the comptroller to confirm that what we were doing was the correct understanding, but we will definitely confirm that date, confirm Ben's information.
Any further discussion on this item?
So, I guess,
Harrison?
just logistically, if we approve it now, as long as there's not any, anything that happens in conflict with the law between now and July 1st, then we wouldn't be out of compliance with the law, correct? Even if we went ahead and approved it tonight. If it happened to be that it didn't go into effect July 1st, as long as we didn't do anything in conflicting whatever with it, then it would be fine. Is that my understanding?
Correct. We've commonly approved policies prior to them actually being implemented. Otherwise, we'd have to come back on July 1st, I guess, and approve it. So this would be, I think the board approving this would create no issues as long as our actual practice is in accordance with the law.
Right. Thank you.
Any further discussion on this item? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Next item.
Next item is discussion action on update to policy 2.806, bids and quotations.
Is there a motion to get this item on the floor?
I'll move.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Dr. Horrell, would you like to speak to this?
I would. It's a separate policy, but it's related. It just has two instances in the policy that refer to that threshold, and it changes it from $10,000 to $25,000.
Any further discussion on this item? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Next item.
The next item is discussion action on policy 5.1151, telework.
Is there a motion to get this item on the floor?
I'll move.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Dr. Horrell?
Yes, and this would be the first reading because this is a new policy. Unless the board decided to waive it, it would require a second reading. This is basically something, obviously, that's come out of COVID-19 and the pandemic, in which we shifted, like many organizations, to telework and decided that moving forward, we wanted to kind of enshrine that option into a board policy so that we could, that it would become an option that we could continue to use. I can tell you from my own experience that the employees that we had that were teleworking did a phenomenal job. There are certain areas where I think it's more applicable, and including in the business side of the house primarily. When your business is educating students directly, teleworking is not a great option, but sometimes in HR and finance functions and the like, there are some, I think, good reasons that telework becomes a good option for someone to continue doing their work from another location. So basically what this policy says is that the superintendent may authorize an employee to telework on a case-by-case basis.
Any discussion on this item? Mr. Burnett?
Dr. Hall, do you anticipate wanting to implement this policy before our next business meeting where we would consider suspending the rules?
This is one of those cases where there's not really anything, I guess, prohibiting me from doing it. So it's something that is, I'll just say, is happening sometimes already and has continued to happen. It happened during the pandemic, obviously, and we just wanted to make sure that it was in policy. So as far as the board's choice to suspend the rules, it'd probably be helpful. It'd be a little cleaner, I guess, if you suspended the rules. But if you felt like you wanted to give folks more opportunity for feedback, that would certainly be fine. Now, but I do want to be clear, there are instances now where I'm approving telework.
Any further discussion on this item? Ms. Harrison?
So I would like to make a motion to amend line 2 to read duties and responsibilities through the use of district-approved hardware and software. I just have concerns about viruses and use of other equipment or records being on any other equipment that is not district-approved. So that's explaining why I would like to make that motion.
And I'd like to speak in support.
Well, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. So we're discussing the proposed amendment. Ms. Harrison, would you state your language again so that we're clear?
Duties and responsibilities through the use of district-approved hardware and software.
Harrison. Mr. Burnett, the floor is yours.
And I'd like to speak in support of Ms. Harrison's recommendation. At my work, we're doing the same thing. We're calling it remote work. And I'd like to, I don't know that it needs to go in policy, but I'd like to recommend the superintendent consider issuing hardware in cases like that. That's what we're doing. We issue a computer now, a scanner, a printer, a digital phone to those individuals working remotely, just to keep that clean.
Very good. We're still on the amendment. I saw Ms. Thomas, but Dr. Horrell, if you'd like to speak, that's.
I was just going to add, I support the amendment. I think most of our, all of our employees have access to district-approved laptops. I think I understand the rationalization. I think it's a strong amendment.
Ms. Thomas, do you have anything to add?
I just noticed we use the language district-provided services or equipment down at the bottom. So is there a difference between district-provided and district-approved?
Dr. Horrell, do you have an opinion?
It seems to me the distinction at the bottom seems to be saying that no one beside the employee can use district-provided services or equipment, and the top seems to be saying do not use hardware and software that are not district provided. So I do think it addresses two different ideas.
Still discussing the amendment. Any further discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the amendment, say aye.
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 Any opposed? The amendment passes. We're back on discussion on the main motion as amended. Any further discussion on the motion? Childs.
I was just going to speak in support of the general concept, because I know a lot of people during the pandemic really found that they like working from home when they may not have even known if that was a thing they liked or not. And there's definitely been a lot of national discussion on, people finding another job if that ends. And so we want the best people. So, I think it's a good policy, and I think obviously it is limited on which positions this can happen with, and you can see someone's work and how it's going, and if it's a good fit for them.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes on the first reading. Next item.
Before we move to the next item, let me give an update. I went back and checked through my email, and Ms. Childs was correct that the law we were discussing does not go into effect until July 1st. So thank you for that catch. I found it in an email correspondence with Ms. Rosales. She was aware, which is the most important thing. She'll keep us out of trouble. I had it wrong in this case, so thank you for the correction there. Next item is discussion action on FY 21-22 budget amendments. Speaking of Ms. Rosales.
Do we have a motion to get this item on the floor?
I'll move.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Dr. Horrell?
Yes, these are just the normal round of budget amendments from Ms. Rosales. A number of them are in federal programs, which, as we know, do change from month to month. There is a change in the BEP. We have gotten our latest BEP estimate from the state, and it was, I'd say, slightly lower. It was about $58,000 less than kind of what our previous estimate had been. And so we have made the adjustments to the budget accordingly. And again, that's not based on any lack of growth. We do know that we were growing, but we have to you don't get the official BEP until after the budget process for us is completed, so. Got you. Thank you for the note. Yes, and this is not it was a state grant as opposed to a federal grant. I think it was a federal grant for the state, but they passed it on from the state, so it is going into our general fund, and that is the summer learning camps budget, which is also being approved tonight. So that's at the bottom, to the tune of about $192,000 that will fund the month-long summer learning camps. Thank you, Ms. Millspaugh.
Any discussion on this item? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next item.
Next item is discussion action on the FY 21-22 IDEA ESEA consolidated funding application.
Is there a motion to get this item on the floor?
I'll move.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Dr. Horrell?
Yeah, this is basically a requirement that the board chair signs off on the overall IDEA and ESSA applications. This is something you do through the budget amendment process. Essentially, you've reviewed these numbers. This is just essentially it's not a formality. It's kind of a cover sheet that just says that the board was involved and aware of how these federal funds are being budgeted and spent.
Any discussion on this item? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next item.
Next item is discussion action on the approval of the 21-22 protected reading list.
Is there a motion to get this item on the floor?
I'll move.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Dr. Horrell.
Yes, as the board knows, the protected reading list is the books that grade level teachers identify as being ones that they plan to teach from for that year. And what that does is it keeps other teachers and other grade levels in particular from teaching the same books. So a student doesn't run into the same book in a couple of different grade levels. And what you're seeing is a couple of additions and deletions from the the LPS protected reading list. I guess we need to update that. It still says LMPS, but there were no changes at the Lakeland Elementary School protected reading list.
Any discussion on this item? Mr. Burnett? I'm sorry, I thought he was moving. Any discussion on this item? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Next item.
No further items on the agenda.
Are there any announcements? Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
Move.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned.